Morning. Hi, gang, it's Hexy. All right, so a while back I had TCS Omaha, and I was just starting to learn how firepower works with tanks and infantry. And then I set it aside for a little while and some other things I'm trying to tackle. But been watching the big board, and he's he's real heavy into the system, and I think he's got a good thing here. This is I wrote just from the little bits and pieces that I've looked at already and watched other people, specifically him, that this is going to be a really good system. Obviously, I've got some squad leader stuff that I play, which is squad level type stuff and individual vehicles. And this game here is platoon level and individual vehicles to an extent when it comes to armor. Step losses in this game. Uh, Last night, looking at it, that most of your infantry type units are like 5 steps. You know, your vehicle units, like your tanks and stuff, are apparently individual steps in this one. I don't know how it is in the later games. I keep hearing different stories. And then you have your non-straight infantry things like carriers and mortar units and infantry guns and stuff like that are like 2-step units. Okay, so that seems to be pretty much the same. Then you got artillery. Looks like you got some off-board artillery in this now. I've not gone through the rules completely on this, and I think for my first play, what I'm going to do, of course, this is from the G. Yeah, I don't know why I do this. From the GD40 box, what's the date on this? 1993. We're going to try this one here. It looks like I can apply the new rules to this, knowing this that units have steps in this game, knowing what the steps are. But I think for the first play, we're going to keep the command rules out of this. The command rules are going to take me back to when I was in the service and having to write operations orders for operations, and which I think is really cool. So with, Dean Essig had this unique way of incorporating systems into a game, into a series that can really bounce fog of war around in your head. So, and I will eventually get to that, but I think to initially learn how to play, because the command rules are like 3 or 4 straight pages of them, so let's cut them out and let's play the game to my full capacity, so to speak, before I get into that. So we're going to start with a scenario here about the initial taking of, I guess it's Stan. So here's the town. Looks like it sits up here on some pretty high ground. Of course, with the TCS maps, you have your elevation marker. So here's a high point of 339 here. And then you can see the gradients going up from 240, 250, or 260 to 280 to 300 to 320. So I'm a GIS guy, so contour lines are great for me. I understand what they are. Now, I've got my initial deployment. I originally put everything down on the map in the spots where the rule book says, and then, of course, within so many hexes. So I initially just sort of covered the area. Then I came back in and I reworked the French. Now, much like a lot of World War II engagements, like, you take the Bulge and stuff like that, it wasn't just a big line of troops, like in the Civil War, the Napoleonics, or maybe even World War One. You would have a platoon here at this crossroads, a platoon up here at this little overlook, maybe a platoon sitting in the woods to ambush. So I kind of spread the French out to what I thought would be good for covering all the different avenues. I think one change I may have to make is a shift in here to put another platoon maybe over in here in the woods, and then shift a second one over here. So my intention was somebody out front, all right? Over here, I got a machine gun team over here, but there's nothing but woods on this side of the map, and you had to be within so many hexes of, the forces in Stan had to be within 2 hexes of Stan. And then the 2nd and 3rd battalions are spread out anywhere below the 25th hex row, the dot 25 hex row. So that'd be south of that. So I had to spread them out across the battlefield, trying to cover avenues of approach here, here, here. And I did this, knowing the direction that the Germans would be coming from, but not knowing exactly what was where. All right, so we stuck machine gun teams with the battalions out on the perimeter, and then we stuck the platoons in. There's no prepared defenses in this scenario, not at the start. You don't deploy with any. So I was trying to think about, do I stack all this stuff up 30 steps in a hex? I thought to myself, no, let's scatter them like they probably would have been spread out anyhow, covering all the different roads coming in. And then Stonn, we'll just do the best we can with Stonn. Keep a couple of armor units in the town to come out as reserves, or maybe even put them behind the town. And then some tanks in here, some tanks in here, because they only start with about, I think, 8 tank units from whatever the 4th BCC is. And then I put the Germans out. Wow. They ought to take Stonn pretty easy. So you've got Grossdeutschland, you've got 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th battalions, and then you've got a Pioneer battalion, and then you've got 4th battalion of an entire battalion of armor. So here's all your Grossdeutschland across the top coming down these avenues. Looks like it ought to be just a hayride pretty much coming down through here, but some armor out in the front here in the center in this main thoroughfare to see if we can't punch through there. They are stacked. These guys have infantry below them. Machine gun teams in there with them. I went ahead and put the mortars on the ground because they have a range of 20, so they're already set to fire. I got to put these guys back. Okay, these are the Pioneers. They're a direct fire unit, so I got to get them in here. And like I said, I have not reading the rules yet. I'm not sure what these guys' purposes are yet. Although I know Pioneers could clear roads and deal with bridges and blow bridges and stuff like that if they needed to, obstacles. And then straight infantry up in here. But then they have this armor unit, this armor battalion that comes in way over yonder. And I mean, they have pretty much a clear, multiple choices to beeline towards Stonn. Now, Stonn itself is going to be a little different because, like I say, it sits on that high ground. It's protected by a ring of woods going around it. So, and then the town itself, so it's probably pretty good defensible. What I am noticing is the on-map units for the French are only infantry, machine gun. I think they have 1 mortar team sitting right here. And then a few tanks. And they have some off-board, it looks like off-board 75 millimeters. They have, looks like 3 batteries, 4 guns each. But the Germans have 3 batteries, 4 guns each of 105 millimeters. And they have some onboard mortars. And then they have all these infantry guns and whatnot. And any 37 packs, I guess, that are on the map. All right, so like I said, I stacked all this stuff up. I haven't been through the rules. This is going to be sort of a learn as I go playthrough. That's why I'm going to put the command rules aside until I can master the actual mechanics of the game, and then we'll incorporate the command rules later on in something to give it a little more realism. All right, as to pointing to where the objectives are, how I want to execute the objectives, and how I want to defend them. So, TCS. Grossdeutschland 40. We're going to play the first scenario in that magazine, the initial capture of Stonn. And I say, let's get after it, and let me tell you what I come up with as I start to go through these first couple turns. All right, Sexy. We'll talk to you soon.